We are following some breaking news. Republicans have nominated House Majority Leader Steve Scalise as their next Speaker of the House.
Now, this follows a closed-door meeting held by party members earlier today. Congressman Scalise defeated Congressman Jim Jordan for the nomination by a vote of 113 to 99. He'll next face a full vote on the House floor. CBS News congressional correspondent Scott MacFarlane joins us now, and that's where things start to get a little bit difficult for Scalise. Scott, tell us, because Republicans have really been divided for days over who their next House Speaker should be. Has anything changed there?
This is a big step toward having a new U.S. House Speaker and unlocking the doors and unlocking the U.S. House of Representatives, but it's no guarantee. It was a narrow vote inside the House Republican Conference today. According to multiple House members speaking with CBS News, Steve Scalise earned 113 secret ballot votes. Jim Jordan had 99. Quite a narrow margin, quite a narrow majority, and that is no guarantee that when Steve Scalise's name is said as the nominee on the House floor later today, that 217 House Republicans will vote for him, the necessary threshold to become the next Speaker when Democrats start voting on matters too. There are some supporters of Jim Jordan who have equivocated about whether they're intending to vote for Steve Scalise today. There have been some members who remain loyal to the former Speaker, Kevin McCarthy, and have flirted with the idea of mentioning his name on the House floor. So that raises the prospect, doesn't it, of a multi-round vote for the Speaker of the House. We've seen one of those recently, haven't we?
Oh, yes. It was 15 rounds with the former Speaker, correct? 15 sessions? Did I get that right?
15 rounds in January.
Okay.
It went multiple days and over multiple nights.
I was going to say it became a blur after a while.
Yeah. Scott, tell us how much you believe what's happening in Israel plays a role in Republicans wanting to make a decision sooner rather than later. And it looks like Steve Scalise is actually coming outside to a podium. So we're going to listen into what he has to say, and we'll come right back to you, Scott.
Your Speaker-elect? Yeah, your Speaker-elect, what's your message to unifying your conference?
First, I want to thank my House Republican colleagues for just designating me as the Speaker. Obviously, we still have work to do. We're going to have to go upstairs on the House floor and resolve this and then get the House opened again. We have a lot of work to do, not just in the House for the people of this country, but we see how dangerous of a world it is and how things can change so quickly. We need to make sure we're sending a message to people all throughout the world that the House is open and doing the people's business, making sure that we're unequivocally standing in our first resolution that we pass under Speaker Steve Scalise will be to make it clear that we stand with Israel. The McCall-Meeks resolution will be our first order of business. But obviously, there's a lot more work to do. The conversations we've been having with my colleagues over the last few days leading up to this show that there's a resolve that we need to get back to work. There's a lot of business to take care of. Families are struggling across this country. You know, we passed a lot of legislation to help families get back on track, to address our border crisis, to get our economy moving again, to address the spending in Washington that's driving inflation, high energy costs. All of those bills that we've passed and that we're going to continue to pass that are sitting over in the Senate need to be taken up. We've passed over 70% of the bills to fund the government, dealing with appropriations and setting the priorities of this nation's spending, and the Senate has taken up zero. The Senate has to start doing their work. And by the way, in that legislation, including the State and Foreign Ops Bill, the Defense Appropriations Bill, includes funding for Israel, things like Iron Dome, precision-guided missiles, things that could be used today to help them in this war. So there is a lot to do. I'm also going to be calling on President Biden to sit down and talk about the crisis at the border. As we have an open southern border, and we've seen millions come in the last few years, including people on the terrorist watch list from all over the world. If he doesn't know now, after what happened, we cannot have an unsecure border. We've got to secure America's border. We've passed legislation to do that. It's time we sit down and have a conversation about how to secure America's border. And it's not a Republican or a Democrat issue. There are Democrat mayors all over the country who've been calling on the president to do this too. That's a conversation we need to have today. There's a lot of busy work to do, a lot of important work to do on behalf of people who are struggling, not only here in America, but who are concerned all around the world. And we're going to provide that vision. We have a lot of work to do. Obviously, I've got some more conversation.
All right, we're going to go back to Scott MacFarlane. I'm not sure if you heard everything there, but we just heard from Steve Scalise. He was asked at the very beginning, what is the message to unifying the conference? And he basically started off saying we still have a lot of work to do and quickly moved to acknowledge Israel. He talked about McCall Meek's resolution. Interestingly enough, Congressman McCall will actually be on America Decides with Major Garrett tonight. And Gregory Meeks is who he was referring to, the congressman out of New York, who I actually saw 2 days ago at a protest in support for Israel. I want to go, though, again, back to Scott MacFarlane. I'm not sure if you heard all of that, but if you could just speak about what's next and where we go from here now that we at least have a nomination.
Yeah, I sure did. What you couldn't see on camera there was the Longworth House office building first floor where this vote was happening behind closed doors. And it was so secretive and they were so concerned about leaks, they made members of Congress check their phones at the door and do this by secret ballot. Steve Scalise emerges, declares victory, and mentions the urgency with which the House must reopen, referencing Israel, the need to have a resolution denouncing the attack and potentially queuing up some aid, potentially aid to pay for more munitions for Israel. That urgency was part of the argument he was making to unify the conference, come together, elect a speaker, and get moving again. But it's not clear he's unified the conference. I talked to several members of the House as they emerged from this meeting, including a couple supporters of Jim Jordan who said they don't know what's going to happen when they open the House floor and have this vote. They know it could happen as early as late this afternoon. And what happens next could be in the hands of a handful of House Republicans. Doesn't that sound familiar? Where you could have a few defectors who can muddle a speaker's vote. And if there's any number above 4 House Republicans who choose not to vote for Steve Scalise on the floor for any number of reasons, it means there won't be a House Speaker elected on that ballot. So that's the prospect that faces us as we begin the afternoon here in Washington. A historic moment. There's never been an ousting of a sitting House Speaker by members. And now there's going to be a replacement vote, which is unpredictable, to put it mildly.
You know, Scott, I thought it was interesting to see how Scalise came out and claimed that victory, owned the space, and was acting as though the vote has already happened. That made him speaker. We even heard one of the reporters call him speaker-elect. But as you mentioned before, we heard from him, he still has a long way to go to make that happen. Not only challenges from Jim Jordan, but right before we went over to Congressman Scalise, you were saying that there's still supporters for McCarthy who are trying to encourage a comeback on his part?
Yes, when this meeting ended, there were still people talking about Kevin McCarthy. I mean, there's a number of loyal Kevin McCarthy supporters who feel burned by what happened 1 week and 1 day ago here when he was ousted by a small faction of House Republicans. These members not only would like to see Kevin McCarthy still in the position of Speaker, they'd like to see something punitive against those Republicans who helped evict him from the seat. That being said, it's just a lack of clarity where those members stand. They were not getting behind Steve Scalise or Jim Jordan. They were just pining for the days of Kevin McCarthy. That would include one House Republican from California who has a contiguous district to former Speaker McCarthy, who told me yesterday he thinks it's inevitable that Kevin McCarthy is somehow in some way nominated before this all ends. I say that to underscore all the variables that exist at this moment. Though
and the
Steve
theater
Scalise has
that may
emerged,
still be ahead.
Oh, yeah. It comes with theater guaranteed. I think it comes with theater either way, because we're seeing something unprecedented, and you're in a particularly raucous legislative body, the U.S. House of Representatives, which is unequivocal in its beliefs.
All right, Scott MacFarlane, thank you.